A deception is a span destroyed before any weight ever tests it. A vase shattered in the quiet gaps separating tongues. In the velvet hush of Lucille's exclusive zenith room, where fortunes shifted through murmured agreements over delicate plates of poached halibut, treachery was assembling itself atom by atom. Elena sensed the change in the atmosphere, a faint discord beneath the room's meticulously arranged luxury. She glided among the tables with deliberate obscurity, a shadow clad in starched white blouse and obsidian waistcoat, her role crafted to register only as flawless attendance. Yet she was far from unseen. She simply watched from angles no one bothered to guard. Her fingers, calm as they topped off lead crystal tumblers, concealed the quiver deep within. For 2 years she had existed as a specter, ever since the blaze of her previous existence had been snuffed out, reducing her to monochrome survival. Tonight, however, vivid hues were seeping back, vivid and perilous. At the far end of the extended rosewood table presided Mr. Kong, a figure whose immobility radiated authority. His features remained serene, yet the tendons in his hands, positioned near a calfskin portfolio, stood rigid, knuckles blanched. He resembled a coiled raptor. Facing him sat 2 Western executives, radiating the relaxed assurance of those convinced they occupied the stronger ground. Bridging their worlds was Victor, elegant and charismatic, his timbre as refined as the single malt resting in their tumblers. Victor served as the conduit linking disparate realms. Elena, possessing mastery over both languages that would have stunned everyone present, recognized the conduit had been sabotaged. She caught the delicate distortion, the gentle dilution of Mr. Kang's ironclad conditions, the sly addition of one vague modifier transforming an ultimatum into a courteous suggestion. The maneuver was exquisite, a toxin delivered in one graceful measure. Her pulse thudded steadily against her sternum. The faint chime of her corkscrew tapping a neck was the sole evidence of her inner storm, a minuscule metallic plea echoing in the opulent enclosure. This conflict belonged to others, this domain no longer hers. Her reality now consisted of gleaming flatware, crisply pleated linens, reciting daily menus, and verifying pepper mills. Still, the echo of her father murmured in her mind, a remnant from the ashes of what once was, reminding her that honor formed the sole base immune to erosion. She pictured his expression, not condemnation of her shortcomings, but sorrow at humanity's indifferent harshness. She had vowed to stay concealed. Yet how could she stand idle while a leader was guided toward ruin by the very interpreter he relied upon? The burden of her secret insight pressed like a physical force behind her temples. She inhaled slowly, the atmosphere heavy with wealth and duplicity. Action was inevitable. The falsehood was no mere fissure. It constituted intentional, calculated ruin. As Elena executed the unobtrusive choreography of service, removing dishes, presenting warm rolls, her motions graceful and unremarkable, she transformed into an involuntary chronicler of profound treachery. She listened not as a mere attendant, but with the razor-sharp concentration of her former self, a global mediator who once navigated the subtleties of legal phrasing across borders. Victor's resonant tenor cascaded smoothly. Each phrase, however, was meticulously engineered deceit. When Mr. Kong declared in a voice like tempered frost, "The indemnity provision remains immutable and final," Victor pivoted to the Westerners with a comforting grin. Mr. Kong indicates some latitude may exist regarding the details of liability, subject to examination of your suggested revisions. The fabrication was breathtaking in its boldness. Elena's palm hesitated briefly above a linen-lined basket, fingertips grazing the fabric's warmth. She studied Victor's gaze, unflinching, masterful. He did not merely mistranslate. He reconstructed the negotiation's essence, guiding it toward an outcome of his own crafting, reshaping the framework piece by insidious piece. The executives, absorbing only the narrative they desired, inclined their heads, tension easing from their postures. They imagined themselves prevailing, domesticating a formidable industrial force. Unaware, their triumph was mirage, dialogue scripted by the individual compensated to deliver honesty. A frigid rage stirred inside Elena, an emotion she had suppressed for years. It mirrored the anger she once felt in a sterile conference chamber as her livelihood was methodically dismantled by polished adversaries. Her identity and standing eroded beneath orchestrated falsehoods. She recognized the technique: poise, certainty, absolute amorality. She glanced toward Mr. Kong, a titan momentarily disarmed by one unreliable voice. A sovereign counseled by a saboteur, oblivious to the poison. The room's ventilation hummed louder, a sinister undertone resonating through the marble. What she carried transcended information. It had become duty. She alone bore witness to an open daylight execution of $1 billion accord. To persist as phantom meant complicity. Elena slipped into the muted steel corridor reserved for staff. Her spine met the chilled surface of a chilled cabinet, its steady pulsation traveling along her vertebrae like a metronome marking hesitation. Removed from the Zenith Room's gilded theater, the stark truth of her predicament descended. Her existence had become a delicate edifice rebuilt painstakingly from devastation. This position, the attire, the veil of anonymity, they formed the thin barrier separating her from collapse. The salary covered her modest flat's lease and chipped at the towering obligations inherited from her father's courtroom struggles. Intervention invited annihilation. Dismissal would be immediate. Causing disturbance amid such powerful figures was inexcusable. At minimum, she would depart unemployed and shamed anew. At worst, whispers surrounding Mr. Kang's operations hinted at shadows far darker than boardroom maneuvers. Entanglement might summon perils beyond imagination. The entrance to the dining area pulsed with ominous promise. Reticence equaled security. Reticence meant endurance. Yet her father's shade accompanied her here, more tangible than cold metal. A structural designer by trade, he had constructed actual spans. His creed, instilled since her earliest days, held that character constituted the irreplaceable support beam. A crossing with one flawed connection ceases to be a crossing, he would declare. It becomes an elegantly calculated disaster. His disaster arrived when a competing enterprise submitted doctored load calculations, dooming a public infrastructure contract. They did not merely bankrupt his practice, they obliterated his identity, his contributions. He passed 2 years afterward, hollowed by betrayal. Victor embodied that flawed connection, the falsified calculation. Elena remained the sole examiner aware of the defect. Her mirrored image gazed from the gleaming panel, weary features framed by a service uniform. But within the gaze flickered remnants of another identity, one that once dominated negotiation chambers, unraveling flawed logic across multiple dialects before dawn. Could she permit that self to vanish entirely? Departing now would constitute ultimate disloyalty, not solely to Mr. Kong, but to her father and to her authentic nature. The ethical equation terrified in its clarity, her brittle security versus an essential verity demanding utterance. Her fingers brushed the delicate platinum pendant at her throat, housing a minuscule sketch fragment from her father's drafting board. The selection lay between dread and inheritance. Eyes shut, she drew one profound, unsteady inhalation, then resolved. Tonight she refused invisibility. Tonight she would become the span itself. Her strategy crystallized with the crisp precision of frost at sunrise. Directness offered the sole path, discreet, plausible, timed for peak fragility. She retrieved the cellar's rarest selection, a 1990 Chateau Lafite Rothschild, a label revered in reverent undertones. It provided impeccable pretext to near the table's apex, an offering the host would welcome. Her chest pounded fiercely, yet as she extracted the cork with surgical exactitude, her grip remained unwavering. This competence resided in deep memory, from an era when pressure demanded flawless execution. Re-entering the zenith chamber, she encountered thickened artifice. Victor mid-translation, his cadence a velvet ribbon threading fabrication. Elena advanced toward Mr. Kang's position, strides deliberate across thick pile. Attention fixed on the interpreter, yet she detected Mr. Kang's sidelong awareness of her arrival with a prized bottle. The threshold had been reached. She paused at his shoulder, posture angled to obscure her lips from others. Inclining slightly, bottle suspended above his goblet in sommelier stance, she spoke audibly in crisp English. "An extraordinary year, sir." As crimson liquid cascaded, she dropped to a murmur in his mother tongue, diction flawless and accentless. "Your interpreter deceives you." She locked eyes for one blazing instant. His previously tranquil regard ignited, irises tightening with abrupt clarity. No bewilderment, no startlement, only icy recognition. He grasped it instantly. She rose smoothly, set the bottle down with measured clink that resonated disproportionately, offered a courteous nod, and withdrew. Every fiber screamed as she retreated. She refused to glance behind. Reaching the staff portal, she sensed the chamber's equilibrium tilt violently around her whispered detonation. She had ignited the charge. Now only detonation remained, with hope she would escape the fallout. The portal closed. She sagged against plaster, limbs unsteady. The quiet beyond terrified most profoundly. The hush from the zenith room extended, stretching into an unbearable 60 seconds. Elena remained frozen in the passageway, earlobe grazing timber, lungs locked. Only her racing circulation filled the void. Conversation trickled back, subdued. For a sickening heartbeat, she feared dismissal. Perhaps he viewed her as unhinged staff, easily ignored. Nausea surged at the possibility she had misjudged him completely. Then acoustics altered. When Mr. Kong spoke again, velvet moderation had vanished, supplanted by glacial flatness. A curt directive sliced through. Elena required no translation to sense purpose. Snare being baited. He permitted Victor one additional exchange, scrutiny never wavering from the interpreter's features, cataloging deceit now that artifice stood exposed. Collecting evidence firsthand. Abruptly, he lifted a palm. The room froze instantaneously. Tension saturated the stillness. "Victor," Mr. Kong intoned in flawless, unaccented English. Invoking the native tongue formed opening salvo. "Kindly restate my preceding remark to our visitors, precisely, word for word." Victor's composure cracked minutely, lip corner twitching. He stumbled, attempting reconstruction of his earlier invention. Mr. Kong offered no reprieve. He shifted focus squarely to the Western pair, regard burning with controlled intensity. Then, in their language, eloquent, disarming, he declared, "Gentlemen, evidently a grave misapprehension has arisen, one I must rectify directly." Blood receded from Victor's complexion. The executives gaped, intellects scrambling amid unforeseen reversal. The imposing figure presumed reliant upon interpretation had resided fully competent on their shore, absorbing every syllable throughout. Mr. Kong proceeded methodically, dismantling each distortion Victor had uttered across the preceding hour, exposing reality upon gleaming wood. With every clause Victor diminished, tailored attire hanging loosely. No shouting, no theatrics, merely precise, devastating excision. The space transformed into tribunal. Mr. Kong served as arbiter, panel, and enforcer. Two security personnel previously stationed discreetly advanced, positioning beside Victor's seat. Their mute attendants delivered judgment. The transaction perished. Treachery lay unveiled. From beyond the barrier, Elena exhaled at last, frame collapsing in exhausted reprieve. Consequences unfolded rapidly, wordlessly. The Western visitors departed via secondary passage, expressions blending bewilderment and mortification. Victor vanished through alternate exit, visage blank with disbelief. The zenith chamber reverted to stillness. Elena prepared to end her shift, intent on dissolving into darkness, when the establishment's supervisor approached, features ashen. "Mr. Kong requests your presence," he uttered, tone quivering. Flight instincts flared, yet she had advanced too far. Adjusting collar, straightening hem, she re-entered. Mr. Kong sat solitary at table's helm, solitary tumbler before him. Portfolio sealed. He indicated the seat Victor once claimed. Elena lowered herself. Palms knotted. Silence lingered as he appraised her, piercing, calculating, as though resolving intricate variable. "You command my dialect with native ease," he observed. Statement, not inquiry. "Yes, sir." Voice level. "And you grasp contractual subtleties intimately." "Once, yes." He inclined forward fractionally. "Service personnel rarely combine such proficiencies. Thus I inquire plainly, who are you truly?" The query demanded autobiography. Barriers erected around memory fractured. Words emerged measured yet laden with 24 months pent sorrow and indignation. "I am Elena Moreau," she commenced. 2 years prior I held senior counsel position at Harlan and Crow International, focused upon cross-border dispute resolution. Partnership appeared imminent. She recounted her father, the visionary designer, his downfall at hands of rival conglomerate Apex Dynamics, their unscrupulous methods. She detailed framing during pivotal mediation where she defended interests Apex sought to absorb. Fabricated electronic evidence, coerced testimony from junior systems administrator, reputation annihilated. Barred from practice, banished professionally, saddled with ruinous expenses. Her father, previously victimized by identical entity, battled relentlessly until vitality failed. "I accepted this employment," she concluded softly, "because legitimate sectors rejected me utterly. Disappearance became necessity." Mr. Kong absorbed without interruption, countenance inscrutable. Upon completion he reclined, digits interlaced. "Apex Dynamics," he pronounced, syllable-laced venom. "Parent entity of tonight's visitors. Victor, their mechanism." Revelation aligned with nauseating precision. Not isolated misconduct. Identical adversary persisted, striking relentlessly. She had not wandered into arbitrary intrigue. She had re-entered core of personal cataclysm. In subsequent days Elena inhabited limbo. She maintained shifts at Lucille, routine providing tenuous mooring amid uncertainty. The Zenith rooms stayed vacant, silent testament to evening that shattered equilibrium. No communication arrived from Mr. Kong. Quietude tortured differently, nourishing suspicion. Had he credited her account, or merely neutralized immediate hazard and relegated her to curiosity? She obsessively monitored headlines, financial bulletins, searching traces of disturbance from her intervention. Nothing surfaced. Corporate sphere appeared to swallow failed accord seamlessly. Existence balanced precariously. Concealment once desired, now choked. Visibility, momentary though it proved, carried unknown aftermath, emancipation or intensified banishment. One midday while buffing stemware, Ebony's sedan halted curbside. Tailored gentleman entered, inquired specifically for her. Not management. Kong associate. He presented substantial sealed packet. Mr. Kong directed personal delivery. He stated courteously, yet definitively, departing immediately. In employee lounge, Elena's fingers shook opening wrapper. Contents: comprehensive compilation, internal Apex correspondence, obscured ledgers, notarized declarations, forensic audits. Methodical dismantlement of accusations leveled against her. Kang's operatives excavated beyond Victor, resurrected her career's corpse. Located expatriated technician. Obtained admission. Traced remuneration from Apex discretionary reserve to foreign holding. Verified forged messages originated on Apex infrastructure, inserted onto her device. Irrefutable exoneration documented exhaustively. Appended, single page bearing headquarters coordinates and appointment hour next day. He had not merely trusted, he had exonerated. Materials transcended proof, they unlocked confinement. Conspiracy exceeded imagination. Perusing compilation, Elena discerned Apex's predatory architecture. Victor constituted solitary instrument with an extensive armory of commercial aggression. Inquirer disclosed year-long campaign undermining Kang's international growth. Specialized clandestine unit dedicated to operational corrosion. Infiltrators, interpreters, junior staff, coordinators, embedded within adversaries and allies alike. Trained to introduce minute distortions, misrepresent exchanges, seed subtle discord. Objective: gradual erosion rather than abrupt collapse. Death by incremental incision. Victor's overt misrepresentations reflected urgency. Kang's pending arrangement threatened Apex's monopoly in strategic sector. Documentation cataloged additional collapsed ventures exhibiting identical signatures, communication breakdowns, shifting acceptability, evaporating confidence. Most harrowing, explicit connection linking her destruction to broader offensive. Apex executive overseeing father's sabotage and subsequent framing bore responsibility for Kong-targeted division. Marcus Hale. He perceived Elena's emerging prowess as prospective hazard, neutralizing preemptively. Strategic, impersonal, move upon vast grid. She had not suffered arbitrary cruelty. First casualty in protracted, undeclared conflict. Awareness terrified yet emancipated. Catastrophe possessed context within larger design. Possessing documentation, she ceased victimhood. Witness now. Kong furnished not solely absolution. Arsenal. Verity outmatched deception. File mapped hostile landscape. She understood topography intimately. Next morning, Elena confronted Kong Enterprises' soaring obsidian and glass citadel, a monument contrasting sharply with her shadowed interlude. Waitress garb discarded, charcoal pinstripe suit revived from protective wrapping, preserved relic of stolen trajectory. Revolving portal admitted her, reflection traversed lustrous onyx expanse. Realm once ejecting her now welcomed return, alien yet familiar. Assistant guided to penthouse. Ascent soundless, metropolis spreading beneath like schematic. Doors parted into minimalist expanse, skyline dominating. Mr. Kong stood silhouetted against glass, gazing outward. Perspective alters at altitude, here marked without pivoting. One perceives linkages spanning urban fabric, fragility inherent, trust invested daily. He faced her, gravity etched. Apex and figures like Hale construct nothing. They erode others' bases. He indicated expansive surface displaying duplicate dossiers. Legal counsel assessed findings. Sufficient grounds exist for comprehensive industrial espionage action, exposing methodology, inviting prosecution. He contacted folder. Your account, combined with material, forms foundation. Pause. Eyes engaged hers. Reemergence follows. Identity resurfaces publicly. Scrutiny returns. Core dilemma crystallized. Pathway forward traversed inferno previously endured. Not reward, he continued quietly. Position. International Strategy Director departed recently. Unit requires reconstruction. I seek individual comprehending deal framework, yet crucially, recognizing saboteurs undermining supports. Individual possessing proficiency, character. Bridge architect capable of detecting instability remotely. Beyond employment, restoration, reclamation, continuation of paternal struggle. Transforming profound wrong into fortitude. Transition from apparition to bastion. Elena regarded sprawling panorama. Interconnected lattice of infrastructure and exchange. 2 years haunting periphery, unseen amid vitality. Invitation now extended to nucleus. Dread persisted, visceral. Recollections of disgrace, identity vilified, remained acute. Hale and Apex formidable, confrontation demanded revisiting trauma. Contemplated solitary evenings, paternal heritage burdensome. Shame, obliteration. Then dossier, assembled certainty. Armament. Kong offered utilization beyond self-interest, self-reclamation, narrative revision. When framed, Elena voiced softly, strengthening progressively. Expression felt stolen. Capacity constructing consensus, persuading, bridging, weaponized against me. Concealment appeared sole refuge. Approached window, aligning beside him, horizon shared. Father taught resilient designs accommodate stress without fracture. I forgot. Opted rigidity, immobility, believing stasis prevented shattering. Turned, determination solidifying. You extend beyond occupation, Mr. Kong. Opportunity embodying father's vision. Constructing and safeguarding crossings. Rare half-smile curved his mouth. Acceptance. Deep inhalation. Filtered atmosphere tasted renewal. Yes. Resolution arrived not by a spectacle of litigation or banner coverage, but quietly, 6 months hence in Seoul Conference Chamber. Elena Moreau, attired in tailored navy ensemble, stood adjacent Mr. Kong. Briefing senior leadership prior pivotal discussion. Delivery assured. Mastery comprehensive. Movement conveyed earned command. Aura commanding space. Phantom no longer. Present formidable, integrated. Concluding exposition. Gaze momentarily settled upon hands atop surface. Unshaking. Artisan's appendages. Serenity descended. Harmony across timelines. Father's memory transformed support rather than encumbrance. Honored inheritance, not through withdrawal from destructive domain, but re-engagement upon self-determined conditions. Integrity inherited armed crossing from devastation toward restoration. Revealed truth. Supreme frameworks derive not from alloy or aggregate, but resolve. True power resides not in fear's absence, but construction persisting despite dread. The weeks following Elena's acceptance were a careful recalibration. She did not simply step back into the corporate world, she was rebuilt for it. Mr. Kang's human resources team arranged a discreet onboarding, new identification documents reflecting her restored legal standing, updated professional credentials submitted to international bar associations, and a quiet but firm retraction of the old smears published in select legal journals. Each morning she arrived at Kong Enterprises' Lahore regional office, an elegant low-rise building of smoked glass and pale limestone overlooking the Ravi River, carrying only a slim leather portfolio and the dossier that had become her talisman. The first month was spent in near isolation, poring over past negotiation records, mapping the precise points where Apex's operatives had introduced their friction, reconstructing timelines of failed deals. She worked with 2 trusted analysts from Mr. Kang's internal audit team, both women in their late 30s who spoke little but observed everything. They called her the archaeologist behind her back, half in jest, half in awe. She was digging through layers of corporate sediment, unearthing not artifacts but fingerprints, repeated IP addresses, overlapping travel itineraries, suspiciously timed executive departures. One evening, alone in the document room after the building had emptied, Elena found herself staring at a photograph clipped to an expense report. Marcus Hale, younger then, standing beside her father at a construction site groundbreaking 15 years earlier. Both men smiling, hard hats tilted back, the future still possible. The photo had been taken before Apex Dynamics swallowed her father's firm, before the doctored reports, before the slow strangulation of a legacy. She placed the picture face down and continued working. Grief, she had learned, was not linear. It arrived in fragments, demanded acknowledgement, then receded until the next trigger. By the end of the second month, she had compiled a confidential 142-page internal brief titled Pattern Recognition, Systemic Interference in Kong-Affiliated Transactions, 2021 to 2025. It was clinical, precise, devastating. When she presented it to Mr. Kong in his private office, he read in silence for 43 minutes. When he finished, he did not congratulate her. He simply said, "We begin the counteroffensive next quarter. You will lead the defense of the Jakarta Infrastructure Joint Venture. Apex will try again. This time we will be waiting." Elena nodded once. The bridge she was being asked to defend was already under construction, and she knew exactly where the weak joints had been planned. Preparation for the Jakarta venture consumed the next 10 weeks. Elena requested, and received, a small war room on the building's sublevel, soundproofed, windowless, equipped with encrypted terminals and a wall of white bards. She nicknamed it the Vault. Inside the vault, she trained a hand-picked team of 6 for multilingual contract specialists, one former military signals intelligence officer now in corporate security, and a behavioral linguist whose doctoral thesis had analyzed deception markers in diplomatic transcripts. They drilled daily. Mock negotiations ran for hours. Elena played every role: adversary plant, nervous junior associate, overconfident CEO, while the team practiced spotting microtells, the slight hesitation before a key adjective, the unnatural smoothness of a rephrased clause, the too-perfect symmetry of counterproposals. She taught them her father's old structural metaphor in a new context. Every term sheet is load-bearing. Change one word, and the stress redistributes. Change it deliberately, and the entire span is compromised. Our job is to feel the vibration before the crack appears. One night, after a 16-hour session, the signals intelligence officer, Captain Rahim, retired, stayed behind to help Elena organize the evidence binders. As they worked, he asked quietly, "Why risk this again? You were safe. Invisible." Elena aligned a stack of documents with unnecessary care. "Because invisibility is just another form of burial," she said. "And I'm finished being buried." Rahim nodded once and returned to sorting affidavits. They never spoke of it again. 3 weeks before the Jakarta summit, Apex made their first detectable move. An encrypted email landed in the vault's secure Dropbox, spoofed to appear internal. It contained a draft side letter proposing last-minute changes to the Environmental Indemnity Clause. The language was subtle, almost collegial. Only someone who had spent years dissecting Apex's playbook would recognize the trap. Acceptance would shift catastrophic cleanup liability onto Kong Enterprises in the event of future regulatory reclassification. Elena called the team together at 2:17 a.m. They dissected the insertion in real time. The linguist flagged 3 politeness markers characteristic of Apex drafters under time pressure. The signals officer traced the originating IP to a VPN exit node in Singapore, same node used in 2 previous sabotage deals. By dawn, they had prepared 3 counter-scenarios. Elena chose the most elegant, polite acceptance of the side letter with one surgically inserted amendment that flipped the liability back while appearing to be a minor clarification. She sent the response herself, signing it with her new title, Director, International Strategic Negotiations. 2 hours later, a reply arrived. "We appreciate the cooperative spirit." The team allowed themselves one quiet fist bump. Jakarta arrived like a storm front. The negotiating venue was the 62nd floor Sky Pavilion of the Grand Nusantara Hotel, glass walls on 3 sides, panoramic view of the Java Sea, air thick with the scent of frangipani and ambition. Elena entered wearing charcoal silk, hair pinned severely, carrying only a single slim tablet. Mr. Kong walked beside her, calm as ever. Behind them, Captain Rahim and 1 junior associate. Apex's delegation was led by Marcus Hale himself. He had aged into a silver-haired patrician, but the eyes were the same, calculating, certain of superiority. When he saw Elena, his composure flickered for less than a second. Recognition. Then composure returned. "Ms. Moreau," he said smoothly, "I understand congratulations are in order on your rehabilitation." Elena met his gaze, without flinching. "Thank you, Mr. Hale. I understand congratulations are also due on your continued interest in infrastructure projects." The barb landed. Hale's smile tightened. The first 2 days were ceremonial. Photo opportunities, opening statements, dinners overlooking the city. Elena watched Hale's team the way a structural engineer watches a bridge under load, looking for strain before collapse. On day 3, the real negotiation began. Hale's interpreter was younger than Victor had been, female, impeccably dressed, voice like brushed steel. Elena listened to every syllable. When Mr. Kong stated that force majeure provisions must include explicit reference to regulatory revision, the interpreter rendered it as, "Mr. Kong suggests that regulatory developments could be addressed through mutual consultation." Elena's pen paused above her notepad. She glanced at Rahim. He gave the smallest nod. He had caught it too. She waited until the next break, then approached Mr. Kong privately. "Same signature," she whispered in his native dialect, softening absolutes into suggestions. "They're testing whether we're still blind." Her fist slammed into his chest, the crack of bone echoing through the sterile hospital room as his body crumpled to the floor, blood bubbling from his lips in a final, gurgling confession. "I switched them. Your baby, she's not yours." The monitors flatlined in a piercing wail, nurses bursting through the door too late to stop the chaos, while Elena stared at the man she'd trusted for years, her doctor, her confidant, now lifeless under her trembling hands, the weight of his words ripping through her like a blade, leaving her screaming silently into the void as security dragged her away, her world shattering in that irreversible instant of betrayal and rage. The crib at home waited empty, her daughter's laughter a ghost, and the truth he died with promised to unearth horrors she couldn't yet fathom. Before we continue, tell me in the comments where you're watching this video from. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful and emotional stories like this. Elena's hands still throbbed from the impact, the metallic tang of blood mixing with the antiseptic stench that clung to her skin like a second layer of guilt as she sat in the cold interrogation room, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like accusatory whispers. The detective across from her, a man with tired eyes and a badge that read Sergeant Harlan, leaned forward, his voice low and probing. "Mrs. Vasquez, you need to explain what happened in that room." Dr. Harlan was a respected pediatrician, your daughter's doctor for 5 years. Why attack him? What did he say that made you snap? Elena's mind raced back, not to the violence, but to the morning it all began, a seemingly ordinary day when her 5-year-old daughter, Mia, woke with a fever that wouldn't break, her tiny body burning under Elena's frantic touch, the panic rising like bile as she rushed her to the hospital, whispering promises of ice cream and park visits once she was better. Mia's dark curls matted with sweat, her brown eyes that mirrored Elena's own, or so she'd always believed, fluttering weakly as Elena held her close in the ER, the doctors swarming, needles pricking, machines beeping in a symphony of urgency. Dr. Harlan had been there from the start, calm and reassuring, his silver hair and kind smile a beacon in the storm, the man who'd delivered Mia, who'd guided Elena through every milestone, every vaccination, every late-night worry. "It's just a virus," he'd said then, but as days turned to weeks and Mia's condition worsened, unexplained seizures, organ failure creeping in like a thief, Elena's world narrowed to that hospital bed, her husband Marco working double shifts to cover the bills, leaving her alone with the gnawing fear that something deeper was wrong. She remembered the small happy moments amid the dread, Mia's giggle when Elena snuck in her favorite stuffed bear, the way her little hand squeezed Elena's finger during blood draws, whispering, "Mama strong," in a voice too frail for a child. Those moments bonded them tighter, trauma weaving threads of unbreakable love. Even as tests came back inconclusive, Dr. Harlan's brow furrowing deeper each time, his assurances ringing hollower. Elena had started noticing the subtle warning signs then, the way his eyes darted away when she asked about genetic markers, the hurried phone calls he took in the hallway, the nurses exchanging glances when he ordered yet another routine scan. But she pushed it down, attributing it to exhaustion, to the hope she clung to like a lifeline. Now, in the interrogation room, she met Sergeant Harlan's gaze, her voice cracking. He said, "Mia isn't mine. That he switched her at birth." The words hung heavy, the detective's face paling as the implication sank in, but Elena's confusion swirled deeper. Why confess now? Why on his deathbed, as Mia lay in the ICU fighting for life? The room spun, her heart pounding with the first emotional crack, vulnerability exposing the raw nerve of a mother's love built on what might be a lie. Sergeant Harlan sighed, rubbing his temples. "We'll need to verify this, but assault, manslaughter, potentially. That's serious. Stay here." As he left, Elena's mind flashed to the birth, 5 years ago. The chaotic night in the same hospital, Marco pacing outside, the storm raging, power flickering, babies crying in the nursery amid the blackout. Dr. Harlan had been on duty, handing her the bundled joy with a smile. "She's perfect." How could it be a lie? The door clicked shut, leaving her with unanswered questions clawing at her soul, suspense thickening like fog, wondering if uncovering the truth would save Mia or destroy everything. Marco arrived an hour later, his construction-worn hands gripping hers through the bars of the holding cell, his face etched with worry and confusion. "Elena, what happened?" "The hospital called. They said you attacked Dr. Harlan, that he's dead. Mia's stable for now, but... God, what is going on?" Tears streamed down her face as she recounted the confession, watching Marco's expression shift from shock to disbelief, then to a flicker of something darker. Doubt? Switched? That's insane. Mia looks just like you, like us. He must have been delirious. Didn't they say he had a heart attack right before? But Elena shook her head, the seed of uncertainty planted, growing roots in the fertile soil of her fear. They had always joked about Mia's quirks, her left-handedness unlike either parent, her allergy to nuts when no one in the family had it, but now those anomalies loomed like omens. Back home that night, after bail was posted with their meager savings, Elena couldn't sleep, pacing the living room lined with photos of Mia's milestones. First steps in the park, birthday cakes smeared with frosting, family hugs under Christmas lights. Those happy snapshots now felt tainted, small joys poised on the brink of breakage. Marco held her, whispering reassurances, but his voice trembled, and in the quiet hours, she heard him on the phone with his sister. I don't know, it doesn't make sense, but what if? The subtle warning deepened, a crack in their marriage appearing like a hairline fracture in glass. The next day, Elena visited Mia in the ICU, her tiny form hooked to machines, chest rising faintly, and as she stroked her hair, a nurse pulled her aside. Mrs. Vasquez, before Dr. Harlan passed, he left a note for you. Said it was urgent. The envelope trembled in her hands, the words inside cryptic. Check the nursery logs. 2018 storm night. Forgive me. Her pulse raced, suspense layering as she snuck into the hospital archives that night, heart hammering, shadows dancing under emergency lights, flipping through dusty files until she found it. A discrepancy in the birth records. 2 babies born minutes apart. One tagged Vasquez, the other Ramirez, but the bands switched during the blackout chaos. Confusion mounted. Was Mia the Ramirez child? And where was her real daughter? Temporary relief came when a DNA test was rushed, Marco holding her as they waited, sharing a quiet moment over coffee, reminiscing about their wedding, the dreams of family, a brief hope flickering before the results arrived like a storm. The doctor, a new one, wary of the scandal, sat them down. Mia is not biologically yours, Mrs. Vasquez. But there's more. The other family, the Ramirezes, their daughter died 2 years ago in an accident. The words hit like a freight train, major loss crashing down, Elena's world fracturing as she realized her real child was gone forever, buried under a name that wasn't hers. Emotional breakdown followed, sobs racking her body in Marco's arms, the trauma bonding them even as it threatened to tear them apart. But why the switch? Dr. Harlan's hidden truth loomed, unanswered, the stakes rising as Elena vowed to dig deeper, unaware of the twist waiting in the shadows. The funeral for Dr. Harlan was a somber affair, the church filled with colleagues and patients mourning the man they'd known as a savior, whispers of his tragic heart attack circulating while Elena stood in the back, her bruise-covered knuckles hidden in gloves, guilt mingling with rage as she watched his widow weep. Marco squeezed her hand, his support unwavering, but his eyes held questions he didn't voice. After, she approached the widow, Mrs. Harlan, a fragile woman with graying hair and red-rimmed eyes. I'm so sorry, but did he ever mention anything about the hospital, about births? The woman shook her head, but her gaze lingered too long, a subtle warning in her murmur. He had secrets. We all do. That night, Elena rifled through Dr. Harlan's office, breaking in with a desperation born of loss. The dim flashlight revealing locked drawers she pried open, finding files on adoption irregularities, payments from wealthy families, and a ledger showing the switch wasn't accidental. Shock rippled through her. Dr. Harlan had been running a baby-switching ring, selling infants to infertile couples for profit, and Mia, her Mia, had been meant for another family, but the storm provided cover. The first twist hit hard. Marco's name appeared in the ledger, a payment noted beside it. Betrayal sliced deep, confusion exploding as she confronted him at home, the happy memory of their first date, dancing under stars, shattering like glass. You knew? You paid him? Marco's face crumpled, tears flowing. No, Elena, I didn't know about the switch. I paid for fertility treatments. He said it would help us conceive. But after Mia was born, He told me there was a complication, that our baby didn't make it, but he saved one for us. I thought it was a miracle, not a crime. The lie hung between them, vulnerability exposed, hope crumbling as Elena realized her husband had unwittingly bought into the deception, their family built on stolen life. Temporary relief came in his pleas for forgiveness, small happy moments recalled, picnics with Mia, laughter echoing, to rebuild trust, but the emotional stakes soared when a knock came at the door, a woman claiming to be Mia's biological mother, Sofia Ramirez, eyes identical to Mia's, demanding answers. "She's mine," Sofia whispered, photos of a lost child in hand. The one Elena now knew was her own, dead in a car crash caused by Sofia's abusive ex. The confrontation escalated, suspense peaking as Sofia revealed Dr. Harlan had switched them because Sofia's family couldn't pay his fee, and Elena's had. Emotional attachment deepened, Mia's fate hanging in the balance as tests confirmed the biology, but Elena's bond with the child she'd raised trumped blood, leading to a tense alliance with Sofia against the hospital's cover-up. Yet the major betrayal loomed. Marco confessed he'd suspected for years, small discrepancies in Mia's medical history, but kept silent to protect their family. Breakdown hit Elena again, screaming accusations in the rain-soaked street, her world unraveling, but a hidden truth emerged from Sofia. Dr. Harlan wasn't alone, your sergeant. He's his brother, covering it up. The stakes skyrocketed, unanswered questions piling. Was the investigation rigged? As Elena raced to Mia's bedside, the child's condition worsening, she whispered promises, the trauma bonding eternal. The hospital corridors blurred as Elena sprinted, alarms blaring from Mia's room, doctors shouting "Code Blue" as she burst in, shoving past nurses to hold her daughter's hand, the tiny fingers cold, machines screaming failure. Sofia arrived moments later, tears streaming, the two mothers united in grief, but Sergeant Harlan, the detective, blocked the door, his face twisted. "You shouldn't be here. This is over." The twist unfolded. He wasn't just covering for his brother. He'd been part of the ring, profiting from the switches, and Mia's illness was no virus. It was poison, administered to silence the loose end when Elena started asking questions. Horror gripped Elena, psychological depth plunging as internal monologues raced. How could I not see? The man investigating me was the monster. Suspense layered thick, fists clenched as she lunged at him, but Marco appeared, tackling the sergeant, revelations spilling in the struggle. I found the evidence in his car, poison vials, ledgers. I called the real cops. Chaos erupted, arrests made, but too late for Mia, her body giving out in Elena's arms, the final breath a whisper. "Mama?" The emotional arc peaked in devastation, Elena's breakdown complete, cradling the child who wasn't hers by blood but by every tear shed, every lullaby sung. Sofia collapsed beside her, sharing the loss of daughters swapped and stolen, a bittersweet bond forming in the ruins. Weeks later, at the graveside, two tiny plots side by side for the girls lost, Elena stood with Marco, their marriage fractured but mending, vulnerability raw as they planted flowers. The final twist, a letter from Dr. Harlan's safe, confessing the switch was to save Mia from Sofia's abusive home, but his greed corrupted it. The heartbreaking truth, Elena's biological daughter had lived happily until the accident, photos enclosed showing a smiling girl with Elena's features, a life stolen twice over. Silence enveloped her. Overwhelmed, the audience left reeling, yearning for more stories to fill the void.